Everyone loves a diagram. So here you go. Today I got a pretty complex looking diagram for you, but it's really not that complicated. It just has a lot of detail on it. And this is the absolute ideal structure for how to run ads for local lead gen. So if you are providing a service where you go to somebody's house and perform a service, this is like the absolute gold standard of how you should be running ads. Now, a few things to keep in mind that are going to depend on your business is whether or not your business is a want or a need. So if you are a want, you're going to want to follow this a little bit differently, which I will explain. But if your service is a need, you should follow pretty much exactly what I have laid out here. So a want is something like landscaping for the most part, epoxy flooring, construction, contracting, all of that stuff for the most part is a want. It's a nice to have. It's not necessarily a need. A need is like moving, restoration companies, things like that, where people actually need your service at any given time. So I'm going to walk through how to set up and how we structure our ads for our local service companies with Google Ads, Meta Ads, and Google Local Service Ads. So depending on your location and what service you offer, Google Local Service Ads might not be available for you, but for the most part, they are widely available for most service-based companies across North America. So this is the entire overarching structure of the gold standard for how to run ads for a local service business. So we have Google Ads, Meta Ads, and Google Local Service Ads, or Google LSA. So with Google Ads, ideally, the structure that you want to have is a branded search campaign. This is where you protect yourself from competitors bidding on your name. If you go Google your company name right now, you will probably see competitors showing up at the top of Google with ads above your organic search result. So lots of people say, oh, why would I bid on Google Ads for my own name? Because other people are bidding on your name. So if you want to combat that and you want to show up, make sure that you are suppressing your competition who's bidding on your name, you do have to pay to play and pay for some defense in that case. And that is what a branded search campaign does. It can be very low budget. Your bidding strategy for that is going to be a target impression share of 100%. You use exact match keywords and you show up at the top every time when somebody searches for your brand name. The next campaign that you want to be running is a non-branded campaign. So this is going to be your main search campaign for your different services that you offer, where you're bidding on the different keywords that somebody who's looking for your services is going to search into Google. More on that in a second. The next campaign that you ideally want to be running is a competitor campaign, where you are going on offense and you are bidding on your competitor's name the same way that they are bidding on your name, whether they know they are or not, okay? So this is some defense. It can be a little bit of a fun one, but you have to make sure your sales team is ready to get calls from people looking for your competitors. Salespeople will answer the phone. Person on the phone says, hey, I'm looking for company XYZ. That salesperson has to be prepared to say, hey, no, we're actually not company XYZ, but happy to give you a second quote or a second opinion. The next campaign that you should layer in is a performance max campaign, but ideally you wait 30 days until you have 30 conversions in 30 days before launching a performance max campaign. Performance max campaign is going to take advantage of all of Google's available advertising placements across YouTube, display, search, maps, Gmail. Everything that Google has to offer your ads can show up there, but this is something we layer in once we are getting some conversions and getting good results. Demand gen campaign is not a necessity, but it is an additional thing that you can layer in later on. And now for meta ads. How we run our meta ads for local service-based businesses is we use one campaign. It's a leads campaign, and we use 3 to 5 different ad sets with ad set budget optimization, not a campaign budget optimization. We use different ad sets to target either different services or different locations. If you are a multi-location service provider, you want to have a different ad set for each location that you service. That way you can have control over the budget that you're spending in each location, okay? We do not use any lookalikes or any manual retargeting. That stuff is old school. You can try it if you want. What works now is no targeting at all. Maybe you can set an age targeting depending on what service you offer. But for the most part, Meta Andromeda is so powerful now, you don't need to put any audience signals into your Meta ads. You do completely wide open broad targeting, except for your location. You want to make sure that that is targeted. And you let your creative do the targeting. That's how Meta Andromeda works. What you have in your creative and your ad copy, that is what Meta is going to use as a targeting signal to show up in front of people who are or should be or maybe could be interested in what you have to offer. One thing that you do want to make sure, though, is go into your advertiser settings inside of your Facebook ad account and make sure that you have your audience segments defined, your existing customers, your engaged customers, and a cold audience. So once you define these to Meta, you will then be able to see a breakdown on how much of your budget Meta is spending on each one of these audiences. And that is a really important data signal for Google, because that's how Meta Andromeda is going to work down through your funnel and make sure that it's targeting a cold audience for the most part. Then it's doing some retargeting automatically. And then sometimes people who are your existing customers might also see your ads so that you can get them to come back and buy another service from you and increase that customer's lifetime value. The last layer of what kind of ads you want to be running is Google Local Service Ads. So this is also called Google Guarantee. And this one, you have to submit your business documents, your insurance, your licenses, depending on what service you are doing. And you submit that to Google. If you get approved, you can launch Google Local Service Ads. These ads typically show up higher in the search results than normal Google search ads, but you have way less control. You basically set your target area and you set your services on a checkbox that Google gives you. You don't write any of the headlines. You don't do any of the ad copy. You just upload your pictures, select your services from pre-selected boxes, and put your phone number in. And that is pretty much it. And Google Local Service Ads is running. So how do we segment our budget for these different platforms that we're going to be advertising on? So if you are a need, if your service is something that people need, ideally, you want to be spending at least 60% or more of your budget on Google Ads, because when they need something, they're not waiting to see an ad on Meta. They're going to Google and searching that right away when they need that service. So you want to take as much advantage of that as you possibly can. If you are a want-based service like landscaping, pools, things like that, you do need to ideally spend more of your budget on Meta, because you have to create the demand and you have to show people ads that make them think, hey, I actually, you know what, maybe I will think about landscaping my backyard. You know, I have been thinking about a pool. I'm going to see what these guys are all about. Oh, that would look really cool at my house. I'm going to reach out and get a quote, right? So you have to build that demand more so on Meta if you are selling a want rather than a need. And that is the biggest thing that's going to impact where you put your budget is, are you selling something that people are going to Google and looking for right away? Or are you selling something that is more of a luxury, it's more discretionary spending, and it's more of a want rather than a need? So if you are selling a need, at least 60% of your budget should be on Google. If you are selling a want, flip that around, and then ideally for both cases, you're keeping around 10 to 15% of your budget for Google Local Service Ads. So let's go back to our Google Ads and our non-branded search campaign. This is the main one that you guys want to be focusing on. Inside of this non-branded search campaign, you're going to have different ad groups for your different services, okay? So you want to have an ad group that is for, say you're a moving company, you want to have an ad group that's for local moving. And then you want to have an ad group that is for long distance moving. Then you want to have an ad group that's for packing and storage. Then you want to have an ad group where your keywords are targeting near me. Then you want an emergency ad group, commercial ad group, You guys get the point. So this is going to be your main search campaign where the bulk of your budget is being spent on Google. On here, I have exact match keywords, but ideally you actually want to be starting with phrase match. You can use exact match. Exact match isn't what it used to be with being exactly what your keyword is. Google will go outside of that. So we typically start on phrase match for all of our keywords. Once this campaign is going and it's live, you want to make sure that you are auditing your search terms at least weekly, okay? You want to go in and cut out any junk search terms that are making your ads trigger or making your keywords trigger so that you don't show up for those searches that are irrelevant anymore. You want to make sure that you have a shared negative keyword list around jobs, careers, DIY, free stuff, cheap stuff, training, how to, all of that stuff. You need to have a negative keyword list built out at the account level so that you do not show up when people are searching free moving company, cheapest moving company. If you want to show up for cheapest services, then obviously don't include cheap as a negative keyword. But if you're not the cheapest, you don't want to be showing up for that. So performance max is, like I said, it's another thing that you're going to layer in eventually, ideally, once you have 30 conversions in 30 days. And rather than working off of keywords, Performance Max works off what are called asset groups, where you provide different audience signals to Performance Max. Because the ads show up on Google Maps, they show up on YouTube, and all these other places in Google's infrastructure that don't actually use keywords, that is why you don't set keywords per se on Performance Max. So you test audience signals and you use search themes, it's called. So what you're doing when you're building out a Performance Max campaign is you are taking your audience list of all of your website visitors, your converters, you're giving that to Google and say, hey, here's my audience signals. Here are the search themes that I want to go after. And then you build different asset groups around the different targeting that you want to do. So very similar to your ad groups with your Google ads, you want to have different asset groups in your Performance Max for like commercial jobs, competitor, things like that, okay? PMax is also very important to have an account level negative keyword list applied, like I mentioned up here, because Performance Max has a tendency to go a little bit crazy. It's kind of a black box where we're giving Google a really big amount of control onto where to deliver our ads and who to deliver them to. So we want to make sure that we have an extensive negative keyword list applied at our account level so that Performance Max doesn't bleed outside of what we're actually offering and waste money on bad placements and bad deliverability. So for meta ad sets, let's go back to that for a minute. Like I said, we use one campaign, ad set budget optimization, one ad set per location. So we would have like primary city 1, primary city 2, primary city 3. We do zero targeting, Advantage Plus only, and that is the bulk of it. But if you are only servicing one area in like a 50-kilometer radius or so, it's okay to just have one ad set for that location and you can have your different ads in there. But if you want to get really granular with it and get really good at it, you can segment out a city by town. So you could have, or not even necessarily towns, like different neighborhoods. So if you're only targeting one city, you could have one ad set for like neighborhood X, and all of your ad copy speaks to neighborhood X. Then you could have another ad set for neighborhood Y. All of your ad copy and all of your ads talk to neighborhood Y. That is how you can get a little bit more granular and how you can actually improve your results by being super contextual with your meta ads. Even if you aren't targeting like the biggest area in multiple cities, you can still get granular and call out smaller location subsets as it's fit for your business. And using neighborhoods is a really good example of how to do that. For LSA, I'm not going to go too deep into that. Again, it is very much set and not forget, because you do have to monitor all of your verification documents, which can be an absolute pain if you have to re-verify. You ideally need to be getting as many Google reviews as possible. You want to be checking out what leads you're getting from Google LSA, and you want to be adjusting your bidding and adjusting your postal codes or your zip codes so that you're getting leads from the areas that you want to get them from. So now for your creatives for Google Ads, how do you structure that properly? So all of our ad groups that I just talked about, where you are being contextual with, targeting local moving in one ad group and keywords about that, long distance moving in an ad group with keywords about long distance moving, you also need your headlines and all of your assets to match that search. So this is where Google's quality score comes into play, and you want to have a really good quality score. Quality score is ranked off ad relevance, expected click-through rate, and landing page experience. So the more relevant and contextual you are being with your Google ads in terms of your ad group targeting specific keywords about a service, and then your ads, the actual headlines in those ads talking about that specific service in that specific location, that's how you're going to have a good ad relevance score, which is going to give you a good quality score, which is going to help you win more auctions in Google Ads against competitors who might be getting lazy. And even though they're spending more money than you, they're not getting as contextual as you with your ad groups, and they're not focusing on quality score as much as they should be. So Meta Creative, this is a little bit different than Google, but the aspect of being contextual and being granular is very important, right? So we just talked about having different ad sets in meta ads where your ads speak to those people in those locations that you are targeting. The best ads that we see working the best right now for all of our clients is UGC videos. So the people who are paying influencers to make videos for them about their services, those are performing super well because it looks native to the platform. People are used to seeing UGC videos, creators filming themselves, talking about whatever. That is what's called a native piece of content that looks native to the platform. So the more your ads look like an ad, those are not going to do nearly as well as something that looks organic. So UGC videos are always going to work very well. Other things that you can test, you always want to make sure that you're calling out the city, of course, showing what service you're providing. Hey, neighborhood XYZ, here's a pool project we just completed in your neighborhood. Hey, homeowners that live in neighborhood XYZ, if you're moving soon, here's a move we just completed down the street from you. Check out what they have to say. Customer testimonials. Those are going to be huge. You want to be testing images, videos, carousels with testimonials. You can take screenshots of your Google ad results, or you can whip them up in Canva and create a carousel with your customer testimonials. Video testimonials from customers, also very powerful. Of course, free estimate or free quote, you need to have some sort of good call to action. But the main thing with meta ads, just like Google ads, you want your ad copy and your ads to speak to that location or that service that you are targeting inside of that ad set, just like what we're doing with Google inside of our ad groups. LSA profile assets, again, you don't really have any control over this. The only thing that Google is going to show is your reviews and headlines that it makes automatically that you have no controls over, and pictures that you upload. So you want to upload pictures of your crew, pictures of jobs that you've completed. You can also upload pictures of customer testimonials, like screenshots, or do them up in Canva. You can take a picture of one of your customers, use Canva to add a speech bubble with their testimonial. You can upload that into Google Local Service Ads, and that is going to display it. And your business hours, obviously, Google's going to take whatever is on your business profile and display your ads during that time. So LSA, again, you don't really have a lot of control over it. So now moving on to the next piece, which is a huge one. This is your landing pages, guys. So everything that we just talked about, being contextual with your ad sets and your ad groups with Google Ads, and being contextual with your ad copy, speaking to those keywords that you're targeting, speaking to those neighborhoods or locations that you're targeting, you ultimately want that person to also land on a landing page that talks exactly about what they just searched and what they just clicked. So this is like the third piece of the puzzle for Google Ads to have a good quality score, is your landing page experience. You want somebody who searches long distance moving company in Ottawa to see an ad that says long distance moving company in Ottawa, and then to land on a landing page that talks about long distance moving in Ottawa, okay? So you need to segment that out per ad group, and that is why we get contextual with our keywords and our ad groups and our headlines and all of our descriptions, so that we're winning as many options as possible by having a really good quality score, by having a good landing page experience, okay? And this philosophy also applies for Meta, even though it doesn't have as much as an impact in the auction as it does for Google Ads. You want to make sure that your Facebook ads are saying, hey, homeowners in neighborhood XYZ, we do pools, whatever. They want to land on a landing page that talks about how you do pools in that location, right? So if you have an ad for pools and then you have one for hardscaping, you ideally want to make your landing pages talk about those specific services while also making it obvious that you do also offer other services as well. So the anatomy of a good landing page is using a service insertion and a city insertion. So like I just said, you're calling out the city and the service that people are expecting to read about. You ideally want to have a form and your call button above the fold always. Multi-step quote forms are really good. However, in some recent testing, we actually find just a classic form works just as well, if not better than a multi-step form. And you want to have your trust badges, so your reviews, insurance, licensing, any guarantees or offers that you guys have. But this is where piecing everything together and being contextual as possible is going to get you the best possible results. Now, what happens after these leads have been generated? This is arguably one of the most important pieces of this whole puzzle, okay? So being granular, like I just talked about for the last however many minutes, that's super important, but your tracking is just as important as that. Tracking is the absolute foundation of all of this for you to have clarity on what results you're generating and for these advertising platforms, Google and Meta, to get good data signals to actually go get you more customers rather than just more leads, okay? So what's happening after these people are going to these landing pages, after they see your ads on Google or on Facebook? On LSA, they're only going to call you or text you. So this lead capture thing doesn't really have anything to do with LSA. LSA stops out after somebody calls you or texts you through the Google app. But what we are doing is we're capturing that lead through a landing page, and we're capturing the UTMs associated with that, the click IDs. We're using Metapixel and Conversions API, and we're using enhanced conversions with Google Ads. So we're capturing all this data on all of these leads that we're capturing. These leads are coming in, and they go from your website into what's called What Converts, which is the main tracking dashboard that we use that captures all this information automatically, UTMs, click IDs, etc. You can capture this stuff manually, but it is a pain and it takes a lot of manual work to set all that up. So we use What Converts. You install the code on your website and it automatically tracks all of your leads with all of this data that you need to see. UTMs, for anybody who's not familiar with that, UTM is going to capture the source, medium, campaign, content, and keyword of what somebody actually clicked on, like what keyword generated this lead, what campaign generated this lead. This is all very important stuff that you guys have to be capturing to be able to quantify your results and tie it back to what campaign did it come from, what keyword did it come from, what ad did it come from, so that you can actually make decisions based on data and not just hunches, okay? So once these leads have filled out a form and you've captured them, they're being captured in What Converts, which is called the attribution layer that we use. And ideally, you're also sending those leads into your CRM. Jobber, HubSpot, for the movers, you got Smart Moving, you got Super Move. Of course, you need to be sending those leads into your CRM. You can do it manually, not recommended. Definitely recommend every time somebody fills out a form, you automate it so that it goes directly into your CRM. Now what we have is kind of two different places where these leads live. And why do we do that? It's C is redundant, right? A CRM is great for being a customer relationship manager. That's what CRM stands for. It's good for invoicing, dispatching, scheduling jobs, getting paid, all that stuff. But what CRMs aren't great at is being a true attribution layer to see exactly what ad generated this lead. Now, ones like HubSpot and other CRMs where you can send UTM data in, you can do internal reports inside of your CRM. But What Converts is the absolute source of truth, where if you have a multi-step customer journey, somebody sees an ad, they click an ad, they go to your website, then they leave, then they come back organically, then they Google you again, they click your branded ad, they fill out your form, if people are doing multi-step journeys, which does happen very often, what converts is the place that you are going to be able to see that. Again, in like HubSpot, you can see that as well. But in what converts, it is a dedicated attribution layer. And its only job is to tell you the exact source and journey of all of your leads so you can tie that to revenue. So we use the CRM as the source of truth for the numbers, for the money, how much revenue was generated from what leads. But we tie all that into what converts to have absolute certainty of where that actual revenue came from. Okay, it came from Bob Smith. What ad did Bob Smith click? What was his customer journey? That is why ideally you need an attribution layer like what converts. And I'm talking a lot about forms here, but what converts is going to track all your calls as well. So the same thing when somebody fills out a form, what converts is going to track all of your calls down to the keyword and the ad that generated that call. Okay. So a huge piece of this feedback loop is taking the data from your CRM, and whether you're doing it manually or it's automated, you're updating these values in what converts. And the other huge piece of this is doing it this way gives Google and Meta deep funneled signals so that it can actually go get you more customers rather than just more leads. So by capturing all of our leads in what converts, adding values in there, marking our leads as quotable or not quotable inside of what converts, there is a setting that is very easy to configure inside of your what converts dashboard that you can tell what converts to, hey, only send a conversion to Google now, or only send a conversion to Meta once that lead is actually closed, or once I actually quoted that lead. Then Google and Meta are going to go and get you more leads that are quotable, or more leads that look like the ones that you have closed, rather than just going to get more people who are going to fill out your form. So, like I said, CRM is where the numbers live. The numbers live in there. That's the source of truth to the revenue and what you've closed. What converts is the ultimate source of truth for ROI and attribution. Your ad spend gets tied into what converts. Your keywords get tied in. Your ads get tied in. You take the money that you see in your CRM, you put it into what converts. That is where you're going to see the most clear, true, accurate picture of your return on your advertising down to what keyword and what ad generated. And ultimately, what you're going to have after this is super deep, granular data on what is your cost per closed deal? What is your revenue per channel? A ROAS breakdown by campaign, by keyword, by creative, okay? This data is what is going to allow you to get better results and actually optimize on real data that you're seeing instead of just what the ad platforms are telling you. Google or Meta might say, hey, a lead came from creative X. But inside of what converts, you might see that creative Y is actually generating a lot more revenue. So let's do a variation of creative Y. Let's change the headline. Let's change the hook in my video and do more ads like that that are actually generating revenue. If you are just making all of your decisions based on number of leads, again, like that's the only signal that Google sees or Meta sees is somebody who lands on your thank you page. If you're stopping your tracking there and you're not doing anything like I just talked about, which is called offline conversion tracking, Google and Meta only see what you tell it. And if you're just tracking leads on a thank you page, that's the only signal it has. Every lead that lands on that thank you page looks the exact same. So you want Google and Meta to see and have these deep funnel signals to actually get you better results. So overall, this is the complete ideal flow of how you should be running ads for a local service business. Whether you're a want or you're a need, that's going to dictate and determine where you spend the majority of your budget, which I talked about how to actually structure your campaigns properly on Google and Meta. And if you guys run your ads like this for more than 1 month, ideally 3 months, if you've never ran ads before, you need to let it learn. When you launch ads, it's like a brand new AI. It has no data, and AI learns off of data. So when you launch ads in a brand new account, there's no data. Google Meta, it has no idea what's going on. You have to feed it data to make it smarter and know what to optimize for and how to get you customers, right? When OpenAI launched, if they had no data, ChatGPT wouldn't be what it is today. The only reason why these AI platforms are so big and so powerful and so good is because of the vast amounts of data that has been fed to it. So that is the best analogy I can give you guys. If you've never launched ads before, you've never ran ads, you need to give it time and you need to buy the data so that the platform can get smarter and go get you more customers and more leads. Here's just a quick look of what it actually looks like inside of What Converts. You can see all of your leads, all of your ad spend is tied in here. Your sales value is tied in here. Your quote values are tied in here. Your cost per lead is tied in here. And we can see exactly what ads all of these people came from. So we can see, okay, Bob Smith, he came from Facebook. This is his information. We quoted him $3,000. He came from this ad that we have, and this is our campaign. And this is what is going to allow you to make decisions based on the data that you're actually seeing here, that if you were just tracking leads on a thank you page, you wouldn't otherwise see. If you guys are interested in learning how to run your own ads, your own Google ads, there is a link in the description of this video to join our Google Ads community. It is currently free right now as of August 21st when I'm filming this video. We are going to turn it into a paid community, but right now it's free. We have over 1,200 members in this community. I do a weekly call, a Q&A call to go over any questions you have about ads, how to optimize, how to do landing pages, how to do tracking. We have all of this training about Google Ads basics, conversion tracking, landing pages, building all of your campaigns, monitoring and optimizing your results, how to run ads from scratch to becoming an S-tier advertiser. All of this is covered in the community that is currently free. So go sign up for our community because we are going to turn it into a paid community soon. If you guys enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate if you commented, liked, or subscribed to our channel, and I will see you in the next video.